Hey fellow seekers, welcome to episode 49 of I'm Just Gonna Say It. It's time for another edition of Spirit Seekers, and this week we are going to talk about what it means to empty your cup, and more importantly, how to do so. Especially in this day and age of fake news and deception, and with all these different narratives being forced upon you, it is a vital skill to master, in order to retain an oversight of what is happening around you. Now, a Zen scholar called Tokusan between the 8th and 9th century AD, who was full of knowledge and opinions about the Dharma, came to a Zen master called Ryutan and asked about Zen. At one point, Ryutan refilled his guest's teacup, but did not stop pouring when the cup was full, and of course tea spilled out and ran all over the table. "Stop, the cup is full," said Tokusan, to which Master Ryutan replied, "Exactly, and just like the cup, so are you. How can I teach you Zen when your cup is full already?" Now, this story neatly demonstrates what it means to have an empty cup, but it lacks advice on how to do so. This episode is going to change all that. So without further ado, let's go with number 49.
There were some lines that expressed your philosophy. I don't know if you remember them or not.
I remember that.
Let's
said,
hear.
this is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
From the moment we are born, our brain starts gathering impressions and, based on patterns in those impressions, starts constructing rules about its environment. Sometimes these rules are correct, like learning that when one object obscures another, the first object is in front of the second. But quite often these rules our brain creates can be incorrect as well. A good example from psychology is what is known as the attribution error. This describes the brain's tendency when judging groups of people to focus too much on those members of said group that show behavior that is out of the range of what is deemed acceptable in society or out of the ordinary. As a result, the brain associates that behavior with the group in question and makes the mistake of thinking that a much bigger part of that group is going to show similar behavior than is actually the case. This is how a relatively small number of troublesome individuals who are members of a certain group, like a race or an age group for instance, can ruin the general image that the entire group has with most people. Or take the fundamental attribution error, which describes how we tend to overestimate the role of personal factors and overlook the impact of situational factors when judging the behavior of others. Closely related to this is the actor-observer bias. We tend to make more personal attributions for the behavior of others than we do for ourselves, and to make more situational attributions for our own behavior than for the behavior of others, especially when judging mistakes. When someone is late for a meeting, for instance, we are quick to say that they are disorganized, while if we are late ourselves, it is the situation that is to blame. After all, the bus didn't arrive on time. Another example is confirmation bias, which describes how our brain tends to look for impressions that confirm the rules it has already formed, while ignoring those that oppose them. And these are firmly established principles within social psychology. I'll provide some links to studies that have confirmed them in the description. Now, these are just a few of many examples of ways in which our brain is basically wired to make mistakes in judgment. You see, at some times in humanity's past, these biases had an evolutionary benefit for our survival. See it as a better safe than sorry kind of thing. Now that that is no longer the case, it is up to us individually to remove that faulty wiring. Now, being aware of these errors in the brain's way of looking for patterns and training yourself not to do this is only the first step towards emptying your cup. What is most important of all of this process is training yourself to hold multiple beliefs at the same time. After all, you can't decide just to forget certain information, and that is not the point either. You just have to train yourself to be able to temporarily hold any belief that you want, even if it opposes everything you think is true. If you follow this practice to the extreme, eventually you will have managed to place all of the rules you have learned throughout your life in the possible category instead of the certain one. In other words, you will have become accustomed to always being your own devil's advocate. To be clear, this does not mean you are not certain anymore about any of the rules you hold. It just means you are no longer attached to them in any way. So that as soon as opposing evidence is observed, you start questioning the rule in proportion to the contradicting evidence in question. It is what true open-mindedness means. As such, mindfulness training is another valuable tool on the road towards an empty cup. It helps you become aware of even those beliefs you didn't even really know you had, because a lot of beliefs we hold are partially or completely in our subconscious. Now, before I continue, please like and share this video to show your appreciation for all the time that is put into making these episodes. We really appreciate it. If you wish to support us further, you can go to patreon.com/AronBijl or visit imjustgonnasay.com for more information on the show and the option to make a one-time donation. If you want one of these awesome shirts, these and other designs are available through the Wish shopping network. Finally, you can buy the book The Polarized Mind, Why It's Killing Us and What We Can Do About It by Dr. Kay Schneider, and part of Amazon's proceeds will go to us at no extra cost. More on this book at the end of this episode. All the links can be found in the description. Now, back to our cups. In the movie World War Z, the 10th man principle is introduced.
In the 30s, Jews refused to believe they could be sent to concentration camps. In 72, we refused to fathom we'd be massacred in the Olympics. In the month before October 1973, we saw Arab troop movements, and we unanimously agreed they didn't pose a threat. Well, a month later, the Arab attack almost drove us into the sea. So we decided to make a change.
Change.
The 10th man. If 9 of us look at the same information and arrive at the exact same conclusion, it's the duty of the 10th man to disagree. No matter how improbable it may seem, the 10th man has to start digging with the assumption that the other 9 are wrong.
And you were that 10th man.
Precisely.
They actually took it from, or they took the idea from real life, from Israeli intelligence services, who, following the Yom Kippur War, started using the principle to avoid groupthink and make sure that all possible scenarios are considered. Groupthink is another psychological phenomenon that occurs within a group of people in which the desire for harmony or conformity in the group results in an irrational or dysfunctional decision-making process. The 10th man principle states that when 9 people agree on a particular course of action, the 10th person must, in the context of strategy, take a contrary approach, even if he agrees with the opinion of the 9, so that all alternatives can be considered. Kind of like an appointed devil's advocate. Let us take the current viral crisis situation that has marked 2020 as an example. There is an obvious difference between people who accept the narrative that their governments are offering them and those that suspect ulterior motives are at play. No matter which group you feel you belong to, I'm not here to judge that at all, try to reserve a part of your mind for the opposing viewpoint and start looking at the world as if that opposing viewpoint is true, aside from your regular way of looking at things for at least a week or two, and see how well it fits your observations. Don't allow your regular mind and the beliefs you normally hold about the subject in question to immediately put up barriers and reasons why it has to be false. Instead, just temporarily accept the opposing viewpoint and see if it is really that incorrect as you have always assumed. You might be surprised at what you will start to discover. To continue this example, it is becoming undeniable that the PCR test is not a suitable method to measure infections as it produces a huge amount of false positives. I won't get into the details now, but a retraction request has been published concerning the Corman-Drosten paper, the scientific base for the use of the PCR test. Aside from the fact that its inventors stated from the get-go that the PCR test was not a diagnostic tool. A link can be found in the description to the retraction request, by the way. Now, approaching this with an empty cup means you will look at it honestly from both sides, aside from first reading the study in question for yourself, of course, instead of either immediately accepting or rejecting it. You will have to ask yourself these questions and then answer them from both viewpoints honestly. How much incompetence is needed for governments worldwide to decide this was a proper method of measuring infections, in spite of people from multiple fields stating the contrary? And how likely is this? And if it was not incompetence, what alternative explanation would explain this behavior? What does history tell us about governments intentionally or unintentionally misleading its citizens? Approaching something with an empty cup simply means not listening to your mind as it is trying to superimpose rules on what you are observing, until you have fully observed and absorbed it. After that, you can merge the new observations and possible conclusions drawn from them with the rules already held and adapt them where necessary. So I've already mentioned that self-knowledge through learning about the brain's inclinations towards bias, and mindfulness through discovering all the subconscious beliefs you hold and detaching yourself from them are great tools to empty your proverbial cup. The very keen observers amongst you might have already noticed the parallels between this subject and depolarization, which I've discussed previously on Spirit Seekers in episode 39. Depolarization is all about not being polarized as a person, understanding the polarized mind, and being able to understand and argue both sides of any argument. It means you can act instead of react, and as such a very valuable tool as well in this process. If you haven't seen that episode, I advise you to watch that as well. It also includes a meditation exercise to help you in the process of depolarization. Click the prompt appearing on the screen now or click the link in the description. As I mentioned in that episode as well, the book The Polarized Mind, Why It's Killing Us and What We Can Do About It by Kay Schneider offers a very well written essay on the functioning of the polarized mind and the consequences of it for society. In the description you can find an Amazon link to buy the book if you are interested. It will also sponsor us by doing so, at no extra cost, as part of Amazon's proceeds will come to us. And with that we have reached the end of this episode. Join me again next week for another edition of Utopolis 1. The week after that, another P4P, Proof for the Paranormal. Until then, love y'all, and don't let the differences in opinions polarize you from each other. Alvida, bye bye.